Yo, what it do, you guys? It is your boys, the Blue Stable. We're back with another episode. We appreciate you guys for tuning in with us, and we got a nice little update for you guys. We're going to be talking a little bit about the training camp, the injury, and a few of our thoughts. But I couldn't do it alone. I got my guy Landon with me. Landon, how are we doing today?
Well, a little bittersweet. A little bittersweet today because this marks our first show since the NBA Finals ended, which means we now have no college basketball, no college football, no hockey, no NFL, no NBA, no college basketball. I mean, like, there's nothing except for baseball. And for a St. Louis Cardinals fan like myself, baseball does not exist right now. That's something I'm completely overlooking. So yeah, we are officially in what I like to call the dog days of summer, which means we have absolutely nothing to look forward to until September, around September, August, September, somewhere around there. So, good news is I'm doing good personally. I'm doing great. Get to go see the Flash here in a couple hours. Super excited. Michael Keaton back as Batman. Now we talked about it before the show. 34 years ago, he was Batman. That's the Batman I grew up with, dating myself with saying that. That's my Batman. So 34 years later to see him come back as Batman, I'm really excited. I can't wait. So, ready to talk about the Colts though, of course, as always.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I hope you enjoy the movie. Please tell me about it whenever you're done. And I won't spoil it for you guys if you don't see it. I want him to tell me about the movie personally, his thoughts. But
Well, I'm not a
we
I'm not
are,
a spoiler guy anyway, because
yeah, I know.
funny story. LaShawn McCoy, I don't know if you remember this. LaShawn McCoy spoiled in game like years ago on Twitter, posted it all for Twitter to see before, everybody, like I think it was like opening day. Like he like spoiled in game. I've had LaShawn McCoy blocked on Twitter since that movie, because of that. So I am very much against spoilers. If you ever see anything from me, there will never be any spoilers in it. I'll just tell you if it was cool or not, or if it was good. Which I have a feeling this one will be. So yeah, don't worry about spoilers.
All right. Well, you heard it from here first. But he did also mention that this is all about the Colts, and we're gonna go ahead and hop into it. Training camp got ended a little bit early from the Colts side, which some unfortunate news. Daniel Scott cannot play his rookie season due to the injury he sustained. Looks like a torn ACL. A lot of Colts fans were just heartbroken and devastated when they heard this news. I know Landon was as well. I remember being in that draft room and we was going over the draft picks. This was one of the ones he was talking about, and it's unfortunate that he got hurt. But prayers goes up to for Mr. Scott. I know he's going to bounce back and become stronger than ever because this isn't the first rodeo that the Colts fans have seen when someone torn their ACL early and then bounce back. I think Julian Blackman kind of had like the same scenario too. But let me share your thoughts about the injury and how can the Colts recover from this.
Yeah, well, even going back further than just draft night. So if you remember, if you haven't watched it, just as like a fun review, you can watch it. Jack Guiley and I did a film breakdown of every position leading up to the draft. We got to the safeties, and I said on there, Daniel Scott was the most Chris Ballard Colts player in the entire draft. And this was, a few weeks before the draft. So lo and behold, he was my favorite safety out of the group we talked about. I was excited. Of course, they drafted him. So you can imagine how elated I was. And so, yes, this was extra devastating for me. It's like my heart just dropped when I saw that because I expected maybe not like huge production in the safety room. I mean, he was great, great depth piece for him, but which they lack to begin with. Much now, we'll talk about that here in a second, but I thought he was going to be a dynamite special teams player, like from day one. The dude was going to excel on special teams. Um, so yeah, losing that not only just for the team but also for him personally, getting to the NFL and getting to compete your rookie year, like I mean, that's just such a special achievement for a young man, and to have that taken away, this early from him, and to have that experience, go the opposite of how he wanted it to. It's tough. So hard, my heart drops for him, but Also, too, I mean, this is now even another loss in the DB room for the Colts. We just had the Isaiah Rodgers stuff happen. They were already down, a corner, and then lo and behold, now we're down a safety. And they didn't sign Rodney McLeod. He's now in Cleveland, so that room was already very young and very thin on veteran leadership. So now you lose even more there, and this back end. I mean, if it keeps going like it has, I mean, it seems like every week now. I mean, this is just attrition already, and there's a lot of guys already out missing practice. I mean, there's Michael Pittman, Darius Rush, Juju Brents is still recovering. There's a few other guys that haven't practiced at all and haven't played. Jonathan Taylor, Shaq Leonard, still recovering from their injuries. So to have this much on their plate, injury wise, and I know a lot of these are minor and precautionary because it is just mini camp and OTAs, and now, moving in, before training camp, they want to give these guys as much time to heal up before they really start getting after it in training camp. So these are minor injuries for the most part, as far as we know, as far as we're being led to believe. As we know, Shane Steichen is not one to really give out much information. Like, the guy is very he they keep things in house, especially. I mean, him even more so than what Frank did. I mean, Frank would at least kind of open up and let you know what was going on, but Shane is just a locked box. Like, you won't get anything out of him. And same thing with Ballard and all that. So yeah, as far as we know, though, these aren't minor injuries. But to have this many already piled up, and now, the gambling thing with Isaiah Rodgers, now you lose Daniel Scott for the season. It just, I mean, no, I put out yesterday. It's like, yeah, no wonder they called off practice the rest of the, until training camp. I mean, gosh, like, this is just, I mean, I know Colts fans are used to it, but I mean, this, I don't really know what else to say. This, it's tough. It's just tough watching it.
It is very tough. I didn't tweet it, but I did mention to myself in my brain when I seen the injury, I was like, well, looks like the Colts is in midseason form because the injury list looks like a grocery list when it comes to the Colts. And it's just minor injuries, but it's just so many players week after week before game day. I can just see it now. The tweet from George Bremer when he's talking about who's probable or who's healthy or not. But also shout out to Jack, man. Shout out to Jack and you and on the shows pre-draft, man. You guys did your thing. You guys definitely tune into those. They're still up in the playlist. If you guys haven't checked it out, we got to get Jack on the show eventually. He's really good at what he does, man. Definitely appreciate his work. But you did mention the injury list. I know even though you before you said it, I was definitely going to mention it. Talking about the minor injuries, I happen to have all of my minor injuries here.
Oh
So if you
gosh.
guys aren't currently up to date, so
Yeah.
here we
We
go.
we figured this was gonna be a short show, but as he reads these off, you might as well strap in because you're gonna be here a while.
Oh yeah. So um, the first one is of course Rigoberto Sanchez recovering from his Achilles. Shaq Leonard with the back surgery recovery. Michael Pittman Jr. with the hip. Josh Downs is on there with his knee. Darius Rush is on there with his hamstring. Will Mallory with his foot. You got Jelani Woods on there with his hamstring. Drew Ogletree with his ACL recovery. That is three tight ends, by the way. I'm just saying. They were there, but they weren't practicing. Also, Landon mentioned Jonathan Taylor with his ankle surgery. Julius Brents with his wrist surgery. Tyquan Lewis is still recovering from his patellar tendon from last year. And you got Jake Witt. They don't know, but he was not practicing. He was on the sideline. It's a lot of injuries that's going into the season, but I will say the bright spot is that they're working on it now before the season actually comes around. We don't want to see them preseason. We want to see them in the actual full season. So they can recover as long as they want. This is just like volunteer workarounds. So it's not mandatory. But if they are injured and they are still recovering, I understand. But that is a lot of players, man. A lot of players. I know Colts
And
fans are definitely on edge.
you didn't mention Isaiah Rodgers now, who's going to be, as we assume, out.
Yeah.
For the Colts, not going to be coming back. He probably won't even be on the team, to be honest. And then now the Daniel Scott. So you add those two names to that list as well as people who are now, missing.
That's like almost 13 or 14 people. just off my brain. That's a lot of players, man. And the season hasn't even started, so anything can happen at any moment. But prayers goes up to all of them. Wish them a speedy recovery so we can see them in full season form because we want the Colts to be healthy and go out there and compete. But it is next man up, and by saying that, the Colts already made a move once the injury was announced from Scott. They went out there and got from Daniel Scott's ACL injury. They went out there and signed an undrafted free agent, which was Michael Tootsie. I think that's how you say his last name. If not, please correct me. But he tried out rookie minicamp and veteran minicamp. He spent 6 years at North Dakota State. I think he is a former teammate of Julius Brents in high school, from my knowledge.
Yeah,
He
Warren
was a
Central from Indianapolis.
Yes,
Correct.
yes. So he was a third team All American and he snagged 11 picks in college. Seems like a pretty decent pickup. Probably going to be a special teams body as well. He's going to have to work his way up, his reps up. I'm pretty sure to see the field. But the Colts were on it, man. They made the move undrafted free agent. If you know a little bit more about him, Landon, please just let me know your thoughts about the pickup.
Well, I don't really know much about him outside. He did play with Juju Brants at Warren Central. Played not FBS, high division, but it was more of that, North Dakota State second division football. But we've seen a lot of really productive NFL ready players come out of that division, and the Colts have actually drafted really well outside of that, Division two area as well. So, um, they seem to have a good eye for safety talent. Chris Ballard has always done a really good job, on the back end as far as safeties and linebackers go. Even going back to last year with Rodney Thomas being a seventh round pick. So, yeah, and we'll see. Obviously, like we preface in every single one of these videos right now, whenever there is a signing or we talk about a guy that's just getting signed, main goal right now is to make the roster. You got to make the 53. So that's probably what they'll be working towards. Could easily just end up being a camp body, and as we know, veteran cuts come, whenever they do the cut down days and all that stuff. So, which is a little bit different this year because before, you were going to like 90 to 70 something, then to 53. And I'm pretty sure now you're just going like the 90 something to 53. So, I mean, there's just like, you don't have that, minor cut and then the major cut. Now it's just all those cuts. So we can imagine some guys, veteran guys will probably be available to sign. So this isn't by any means, the signing that I mean it very well could be, but we don't really know what that room's going to look like here in August and September. So we'll we'll see if they have any success with that. And they have really, Kenny Moore, if we remember, was picked up in August after final cut downs. And that ended up being a very fruitful signing for them. So just keep an eye on everything as we get into the season. But we're a few months away from that. But yeah, good. Best of luck to him. Best of luck to the kid on making the team and living out his dream here in camp.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We love everyone that's getting the opportunity to go out there to do what they love, man. Especially guys from Indiana. They get to play for their home team, so that's just a dope feeling and a dope experience to, as a player to go through. So, good luck to him. Hopefully he can make the final 53. Gonna go over the training camp a little bit, the overview, a few players that stood out, if you happen to know any, but from what we were reading because we weren't there. It looks like the defense had themselves a ball at the end of camp. Dumbo and Flowers, they had them a little show. I heard Dumbo had a one-hand interception, which is pretty dope. He picked off Sam Ellinger. We could talk a little bit about Sam moving forward, but there was a rough day out there at the last day, and a lot of Colts fans were a little skeptical, and some of them were like relieved when they heard about Anthony Richardson and his struggles in the last day of camp. But that just shows you the defense is young and hungry. I want to get your thoughts about the last day of camp. I heard Anthony Richardson was 2 for 5. Gardner Minshew was like 1 for 3 in the 11 on 11s, and Sam Ellinger has just been rough all camp from what I've heard. But let me get your thoughts about the young guys out there flourishing and Anthony Richardson struggles. What's your like general perception?
Yeah, well, generally, whenever you're like this early in, and obviously the defense is going to have a leg up because Gus Bradley is returning. They're staying in the same system, that they were in last year. Whereas on the offensive side, they're having to build an entire system from scratch this offseason. So it's all new to all these guys. So yeah, there's the defense is going to be way ahead of where the offense is at right now. That's to be expected, and that's the case generally most of the time to begin with, because most of the time on offense, especially from the quarterback position, it's all about timing, rhythm, getting into the right calls, getting into all that kind of stuff. And whenever you're throwing, I mean, just look at the list of names. You know, Alec Pierce just returned this week, but Michael Pittman's still out. Josh Downs is still out. You know, they're throwing to, you know, undrafted guys right now as well, and they're going up against some pretty talented DB room. So yeah, it's no surprise to see the quarterbacks are struggling. That's generally what these are for, especially with Anthony Richardson, because we know how much he needs reps. He needs practice, and you know, the 7-on-7, the 11-on-11 drills. I mean, it's going to be so important for him because I mean, look at guys like Bryce Young this week, who was, you know, I believe either this week or last week was named the starter in Carolina, was named the, you know, quarterback one over there. Anthony Richardson's played 1/4 of the football, 1/4 of the snaps that he has. But then on top of that, just knowing how these things operate, you add in the, you know, the 7-on-7 snaps, the 11-on-11 snaps, going from all these camps and all these drills and stuff like that Bryce Young was in from, you know, very early on, that Anthony Richardson kind of was late to get into. So you have all those snaps on top of it. So yeah, the learning curve, as we've talked about on this show, is massive. It's going to take maybe not even just, you know, everybody thinks, you know, this off season, once he learns the book, like everything's going to be smooth. It's not. This is probably going to, you know, 2-3 years before he's really got things down, you know, to where he's able to just play fast and, you know, boom like that. So it's, you've got to be patient. You're going to have growing pains. The good news is what you're hearing reported is that for every one of these, you know, interceptions, missed accuracies, you know, bad footwork drills, one, you're also seeing the splash plays. You're seeing the explosive 60-yard touchdown passes that are dimes. You're seeing, and we haven't even gotten into, you know, where he can showcase his ability to rush the football. So you're seeing these explosive plays that made him a top 5 pick littered in with some of those inconsistencies. And that's really what you want to see at this point, because if all you're seeing is the inconsistencies, but you're not seeing the, you know, the cool 60-yard bombs and the fun plays, then you'd kind of be like, oh well, I mean, we'll see how this goes. But you are seeing those plays that make him special as, you know, a physical person. And really you hear about the work ethic, the mentality, where from everything that's been reported, and everything that I know personally, I mean, the guy is like, he's been in Indy now, you know, a couple months, and he's barely set foot outside of the facility. Like he lives in the Colts facility, either watching film, learning the playbook, in the weight room drilling. Um, he's obsessed with improving and getting better, and that's really what you want to see. That's the main takeaway that I've taught, you know, taken away, because all the other stuff I expected. But whenever you hear about, you know, the young man, and you hear about, you know, the work ethic and the character, you know, sometimes you can kind of get into thinking is like, well, this could be, you know, dog and pony show. Media is always going to report on things that, you know, show things in favorable lights. I know I personally have been accused of that, you know, only showing the good stuff. But I mean, even hearing from people like not on record, you know, not, you know, a media driven thing, like the guy has basically lived at the facility and he is putting in a ton of work, and his teammates have noticed that as well, and you can see that in their comments. So I think that's going to bode well for him in the future. But yeah, it's as far as, you know, camp goes and the defense showing good, I mean, that's really what you're want, not necessarily what you want to see, but because it's not fun, it's not cool. You don't see all the high flying points being scored and stuff like that. But I would personally be more worried if the defense didn't look a ton better than the offense right now, because you know, they've got a year of experience, you know, for a lot of these guys here on defense, from working with Gus Bradley last year. So they're going to be able to play a little bit faster, play a little bit looser, know the playbook a little bit better, as opposed to the offense, who's just kind of starting literally from the ground up.
I agree 100%, man. It's just good to have you on the show with your point of view on these things. And you mentioned the obsession. And I was just totally agreeing with that point because when you have a guy like Anthony Richardson who came out a little bit early and still has a few things to work on, you will want to see a few struggles and see how does he bounce back from that. Does he get in his own head or does he try to figure it out? Does he make an adjustment in the middle of those? And like you said, we've seen the good things, we've seen the bad things, but of course we know how media spins, certain scenarios when they talk about struggles. We get certain accounts that just blow it all up and feel like, oh, he's just going to be a terrible thing. But like we mentioned the whole time since we drafted Anthony Richardson, he's gonna be a work in progress. So he's not gonna come out here and probably he's not gonna be the best quarterback since Peyton Manning or something of that nature. He's gonna have to develop some certain skills and certain footwork and things in the pocket of that nature. And it's gonna take time. It's gonna take time to develop Anthony Richardson. We just got to be patient. But it's good to see that the defense had looked like they haven't lost a step, especially against a rookie quarterback and a vet like Sam Ellinger and Gardner Minshew. You want to see certain things like that. So it's good to see that everything isn't perfect, and we see some struggles that we're expected to see anyway. And hopefully he can try to step up and get better as the weeks go on. So it is what it is at the end of the day. I don't take anything from it. You're going to get picked off regardless. And it's not like a Matt Ryan scenario. He's a rookie, so he's going to have rookie mistakes. It's totally normal. Everybody goes through it, and it is what it is. So it's good that he got a good support cast around him, like a Gardner Minshew, who also struggles. But I'm pretty sure he's gonna, and he got a good coaching staff with him as well. I know Shane Steichen's gonna have something drawn up to get the best out of his abilities moving forward into the season. So, like I said, this is just mini camp. So, like Landon said, we're not gonna blow it up. Struggles happen, and it is a rookie quarterback who came out a little bit early. So it is what it is at the end of the day. And we're going to move on to the next topic, which is talking about Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor got interviewed at camp, and they started talking about the contract extension. And one of the things was mentioned that he said he wanted to be with the Colts for his whole career. And that's kind of like a normal thing to say for from players when they talk about contract extension. The team that drafted you want to be with that team for your whole career is kind of normal. Did you get anything that you took away from his response to that question? And his contract extension, like I think we did talk about his contract extension already. If you would want to keep him or not, and I think we both agreed that Jonathan Taylor is a player that you would want to have in this roster, especially with a guy like Anthony Richardson. But what was your reactions to his comments when they talked about the extension?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, like you said, you always want to stay with the place that drafted you. I mean, that's just the nature of the business. But at the same time, what I kind of took away was at the end when he said, kind of the balls in their court. That kind of illuminated a little bit more to me that maybe they're not as close or as far away from striking a deal as what we think they are. Um, that being said, Chris Ballard has made it very well known that he will pay guys if they produce, and he will pay his own guys. I fully expect the deal to get done. I don't think that's a question. I think Jonathan Taylor is going to be a Colt. Um, and whether I believe it should happen or not doesn't really matter. Personally, I love Jonathan Taylor. I think he's a fantastic player. It's just with the running back market the way it is, and we've really seen this pop up over the last few weeks. Um, the Dalvin Cook situation, Josh Jacobs coming out speaking up. I believe there was another running back, Saquon Barkley, is what I'm thinking of. He had made the comments. Now we see Jonathan Taylor. So, these guys, they're coming out and they're speaking up against these contracts and you know how devalued the position is in today's league, with all the passing and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, your market is your market. And, that's just the reality of the business. I mean, it, if we had examples of guys that are only going in, the first two rounds being the only guys that produce from that position, then yeah, you have an argument. But when you have undrafted running backs like James Robinson or these guys going in, the fifth, sixth round coming in and giving you, well, maybe not as great, but relatively similar production for literally pennies on the dollars they would have to spend to keep you. I mean, it does affect your leverage some. So I think that's just the reality of football in 2023. It's something that I don't necessarily goes away anytime soon. And I think what's even worse for Jonathan Taylor in his negotiations is the inability that he shows as a pass catching running back. Not necessarily that he can't do it, but I mean that's just not a strength of his. That's not a utilization. So, um, whereas guys, like Saquon Barkley, I mean you know he's going to catch 50, 60 balls a year, and he's going to give you 1,500 yards rushing as well. So those guys might have a little bit more leverage in their situation as opposed to JT, who's much more of just a pure running back that can carry the load on the ground. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out. But like I said, I don't expect Jonathan Taylor to wear another uniform, at least, going through his second contract. I think he's going to end up being a Colt for the foreseeable future. I think a deal will get done. Now, where that deal lands, we'll have to see. I think it's probably going to be somewhere between that 12 to $14 million per year range. That seems to be the going rate right now for top tier running backs, just with the way the market is right now. But as we know, Chris Ballard's never been shy of resetting the market on positions that don't necessarily have the greatest value. As we've seen with guard, as we've seen with linebacker. Those were record breaking contracts at the time he made those deals for positions that aren't necessarily considered premium positions. And part of that might be why the reason the Colts were in the position they were in this last year, putting all those resources into positions that don't impact the game and, kind of letting your other positions go. But that's not the topic of the show right now. I'm getting off on a tangent. So yeah, um, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But yeah, I expect JT will be wearing a horseshoe at least for the next few years.
I agree. I agree. I do think he stays a Colt. Uh, of course,
I mean,
we'll bring up
speaking of,
the.
it's literally right next to my face right here. I mean, he's just right beside me. So
Oh my gosh. No bias.
you
No
got
bias opinion.
you got the rookie one.
No bias opinion from Landon. He spoke all honesty. I do think he'll be a Colt as well. Now, if we was talking about Michael Pittman Jr. and his market, and he coming up with the contract extension, that's a whole nother discussion. That'll probably take an hour. But the running back market, in my opinion, is definitely a tricky one when it comes to them. We even seen Gibbs get drafted early to the Lions when we thought they already was solid in the running back room. But hey, Gibbs is looking good at camp. And it just showed you that the running back market is, well, not even the market, I would say like the years of being a running back is like very slim. Like you see them be good for a little bit, and then they just get replaced. It's just so easy to find another good running back in the draft or undrafted. Like we mentioned James Robinson. James Robinson was a beast when he came in. And I thought
Well, I
he
mean,
was really
even
good.
you can even just go back to like the same team. Like, look at Jonathan Taylor. Look at the year he had in 2021. Look at how productive he was. I mean, what 20 total touchdowns, 18, 1900 yard, rushing yards. I mean, like the guy was just an absolute monster. And that team missed the playoffs. They didn't make the playoffs. So, I mean, it's hard to justify giving that much money to that position, but things always get a little bit more even out when you've got a quarterback on a rookie deal. So that's the one thing you've got going for you here in Indianapolis is you can make contracts like that because you're not paying your quarterback, you know, 30, 40, $50 million per season. And if Anthony Richardson hits, that time will come.
Oh yeah,
That
we're
we
gonna
we
start seeing
hope
some more baseball
we hope
contracts.
we hope that we're paying, like I know it's funny to say now, but like really, like in all honesty, I hope we are paying Anthony Richardson $50 million a year here in 2028. He's signing a $50 million per year contract or $60 million per year because if he's signing that big of a deal, that means something good happened. That is like I mean, so that's really what you're hoping for.
I agree, man. He's a dual threat, so I'm pretty sure he's gonna show something. Colts fans gonna want him to get that deal done. So that's only a matter of time. We're gonna be patient, and it is what it is at the end of the day. But you guys let us know your thoughts in the comment section about your thoughts of training camp or what you've seen or what you read or if you went to training camp or anything of that nature. Let us know your whole thoughts. Let us know your thoughts about the Jonathan Taylor scenario, his contract extension. Let us know if you're worried about the injuries and all of these things, because we know the injuries can take a toll on Colts fans. Because Colts fans are definitely on edge, especially after the last few years. Being a Colts fan, it wasn't the greatest. So seeing all these injuries, especially with star players on that list that Colts fans are on edge with as well, it ain't pretty sight to be on Twitter as a Colts fan. So, any more thoughts later before we get up out of here?
Nope, that's all I got, man. Just ready, ready for the Flash tonight. Super excited.
Yes, sir. Waiting for the Flash. Hopefully, we can get some Flash product from Josh Downs next year. He's gonna be like a Flash on that offense. I'm pretty sure. So it's gonna be exciting, man. It's gonna be exciting. But that's pretty much all we got for you guys. Feel free to continue to tune in. We're gonna keep you guys posted on all news Colts related. Appreciate each and every one of you for supporting us on all our platforms. If you haven't, the links are in the description. Be sure to follow us on Twitter as well. Landon's Twitter is right there on the screen, and my Twitter is as well as you can see is Culture Shock. But we appreciate all you guys for tuning in. Mike should be back soon. He's still figuring out this death situation. But other than that, this is Landon. This is Marcus, Culture Shock, and we are out.